When a flame is put out, it doesn't disappear. It leaves behind darkness. Let that sink in. Right now, you may think that leaving means they'll forget you, that if you just disappear, if you don't explain or fight for closure, they'll move on as if you never mattered. But my friends, that's not what happens. They don't lose you. They lose the version of themselves they thought they had with you. People don't miss you the way you think. They don't sit around crying over you. No, they feel the loss in a way they can't even understand. They don't feel your absence. They feel like something inside them is missing, and that is what shatters their ego. So, before we go any further, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because what's coming next is going to change the way you see human nature forever. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk into your favorite cafe, the one you've been going to for years. You sit at your usual table, order your usual drink, and everything feels the same until you look around and realize something is off. The decorations are gone. The music is different. The staff doesn't recognize you. It's like the place has erased your existence. That's what happens when you disappear. You don't just leave, you erase the role they thought they had in your life. You were once the go-to, the comfort zone, the backup plan. But now, they're just standing in an empty space where you used to be. That emptiness, that uncertainty, is what keeps them awake at night. Because let me tell you something, people don't actually fear losing you. They fear losing the version of themselves that existed when they had access to you. They fear not knowing where they stand. They fear that the control they thought they had was never real to begin with. That's why silence is so powerful. When you're still talking, still explaining, still reacting, they don't feel the loss. As long as they can predict you, they don't panic. But the second you vanish without a word, the second they realize they have no idea what's going on inside your head, that's when their mind becomes their own worst enemy. You ever notice how people don't start caring until you stop? How they don't check in until you disappear? How they don't suddenly appreciate you until you're no longer there to appreciate? That's not love, my friends. That's ego. That's possession. That's their mind screaming, "Wait! I thought I had them figured out." But now they're staring at their phone, scrolling through old messages, waiting for a reply that's never coming. Nothing drives a person crazier than an unanswered question. I know what some of you are thinking, but if I don't explain myself, they won't know how much they hurt me. Let me ask you something. When they ignored your worth, when they played games, when they treated you like an option, did they explain themselves? Did they sit you down and say, "Hey, just so you know, I'm about to take you for granted"? Number. So why do you think they deserve a neat little speech now? Why do you think they deserve an explanation for why you're walking away? They don't. The people who truly care don't need an explanation, and the ones who do only want it to protect their own ego. So today, you stop giving them that luxury. You stop making it easy. You stop feeding them answers. When a person can't figure you out, they never stop thinking about you. By the time they realize what they lost, you won't even care anymore. Now say it with me. My silence is my power. Write it in the comments. Own it. Live it. And if you're ready to stop explaining, stop chasing, and start winning, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with me, because this is just the beginning. Number 1. Disappearance is the ultimate psychological attack. When you take yourself away, you take away their ability to define themselves. Let that sink in. Right now, you think disappearing is just a quiet exit, just you walking away, letting go, moving on. But disappearing is not a retreat. It's an attack, not with words, not with anger, not with revenge, but with absence. Trust me. Nothing breaks a person's ego like realizing they no longer have access to you. People don't just see relationships as connections, they see them as mirrors. You weren't just someone they spent time with. You were a reflection of how they saw themselves. You were the loyal one, the always available one, the backup plan that gave them power. They saw themselves as the one you'd always be there for, the one who could come and go, knowing you'd always pick up where they left off. But what happens when you vanish without a word? What happens when the mirror they once used to admire themselves suddenly disappears? They don't just lose you, they lose a piece of themselves, and the worst part is, they don't even realize it at first. Hey folks, imagine this. You've got a favorite jacket. It's always there in your closet, waiting for you. You don't think about it. You don't appreciate it. It's just there, always within reach. Then one day, without warning, it's gone. At first you don't even notice. You pick something else to wear, life goes on. But then a cold day comes, and suddenly you reach for that jacket out of habit, and it's not there. That's when it hits you. That's when the regrets start creeping in. You realize you took it for granted. That's exactly what happens when you disappear. At first, they don't feel it. They think they're fine. They think they got away with whatever they did. They might even feel relieved, thinking they've won. But then a cold day comes, a moment where they need you, where they crave the comfort of knowing you're still there, and you're gone. That's when their ego takes the hit. Here's the truth. People don't actually fear losing you. They fear losing the version of themselves they thought they had when they had access to you. They fear the emptiness that comes when they realize you're no longer a part of their world. That's where the fear kicks in. You might be thinking, but if I disappear, what if they never come looking? Ask yourself, why do you care? Why do you need them to notice? Why do you need them to realize what they lost? Deep down, you were conditioned to believe that your value is measured by how much someone chases after you. If they don't come running back, then somehow you weren't important enough. That is a lie. Your worth has nothing to do with how much they miss you. Your value isn't proven by their regret. Yet that's the trap. That's why people break their own silence. That's why they check their phone wondering, do they miss me yet? That's why they second-guess themselves, thinking, maybe I should say something just so they remember me. But listen to me. You do not need to be remembered by someone who only valued you when you were within reach. Think about this. When they ignored you, when they made you feel small, when they took your presence for granted, did they wonder if you were okay? Did they sit around thinking about how you felt? Number. So why are you sitting here now, obsessing over whether they notice you're gone? Let me tell you what's really going to happen. At first, they'll feel nothing. They'll assume you're still an option, that they can come back whenever they feel like it. They'll scroll past your name in their phone and think, they'll still be there when I'm ready. But then one day, it will hit them. Not because they love you, not because they suddenly respect you, but because their ego will take the biggest hit of all, realizing they can no longer predict you. They used to know you'd always respond, know you'd always forgive, know that no matter what they did, they still had a place in your life. But now, they don't know a thing. That's what keeps them up at night. Not knowing if you still care, not knowing if they still have a hold on you, not knowing if you've replaced them. The beautiful part is that by the time they start asking those questions, you'll already be gone. That's why disappearing is the ultimate psychological attack, because silence is not just absence, it's a weapon that forces them to sit with their own ego and face the reality that they no longer have you. But I won't lie to you, this won't be easy. The hardest thing you'll ever do is walk away without looking back. Your mind will scream at you to check their social media, to send one last message, to find out if they care. But you know what's more powerful than knowing whether they care? Not caring. The moment you stop seeking validation, the moment you stop craving a reaction, the moment you realize that you were always enough with or without them, that's the moment you win. So now, my friends, it's time to make a choice. You can keep waiting for them to wake up, Keep hoping they'll chase you. Keep feeding their ego by wondering if they miss you, or you can disappear. Not to punish them, not to make them regret, but to finally take back your own power. The real power is in moving on so completely that by the time they realize what happened, you don't even care anymore. Now say it with me. I take my power back. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are done waiting for someone to see your worth. Number 2, you were never a person to them, you were a mirror. People don't fear losing you, they fear losing who they were when they had you. Let that hit you. Right now, you think they miss you, that their silence means they're suffering, that one day they'll wake up, realize how special you were, and come running back, begging for another chance. But my friends, that's not what's happening. They're not sitting there missing you. They're sitting there missing the way they felt when they had you. There's a big difference. Here's the truth nobody talks about. They never valued you. They valued what being around you made them feel about themselves. You made them feel desirable, important, admired, needed, superior, and in control. When you disappear, it's like walking into a room and realizing the mirror is gone. They don't just miss you, they feel exposed, hollow, insecure, because they no longer have a reflection telling them who they are. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine a magician who only looks powerful because of the stage, the lighting, the audience watching in awe. The second the curtains close, the stage vanishes, and the audience walks away. He's just a person standing there with an empty deck of cards. The magic wasn't in him, it was in the environment. That's exactly what happens when you leave. They thought their power came from within, but now that you're gone, they feel like nothing. Because they were never the magic, you were the stage that made them look like something they weren't. That's why they don't actually regret hurting you. That's why they don't feel guilt the way you think they should. Because it was never about you. It was always about what they gained from having you around. Now they're standing in an empty room with no reflection to admire, and that's when the panic sets in. You might be wondering, but if I was just a mirror to them, why did they even want me in the first place? Simple. People don't want love, they want validation. They don't seek connection, they seek control. They want to know that someone out there sees them as special, irreplaceable, wanted, and you gave them that. Every time you forgave their mistakes, you told them they were powerful. Every time you answered after they ignored you, you told them they were desirable. Every time you gave more than you got, you told them they were worthy. They weren't falling for you, they were falling for the way you made them feel about themselves. The second you remove yourself, that illusion shatters. Here's where it gets even more twisted. They don't come back because they miss your love. They don't come back because they realized your worth. They come back because they need their ego repaired. It's like someone staring at their reflection every morning, feeling powerful, attractive, untouchable. Then one day, the mirror disappears. Now they don't know how to see themselves anymore. The scariest part is they don't even realize that's why they're reaching for you again. They'll say things like, I miss you, I've been thinking about you, I made a mistake. But deep down, they don't actually miss you as a person. They miss having access to you. They miss how easy you made them feel important. They miss the emotional safety of knowing you were always there. That's where most people break. Because when they come back, when they send that late-night message, when they act like they suddenly realize what they lost, you believe it. You think maybe they've changed. But my friends, let me ask you something. If they truly loved you, why did it take your absence for them to see it? If they really valued you, why didn't they fight for you when they had the chance? If they actually cared about your worth, why did they only recognize it when it served them? Because this isn't love, it's panic. It's them realizing they lost control over how they see themselves. Here's where you need to be stronger than ever. Right now, some of you are waiting, checking your phone, wondering if they'll ever notice you're gone. You're still hoping they'll chase you, that they'll feel the pain you felt, that one day they'll come back and say, "You were right. I should have treated you better." But let me tell you the truth. They're not coming back for you. They're coming back for themselves. They want the mirror back. They want the validation back. They want to restore the illusion that they were always in control. And you're going to make sure they never get that chance again. Because the worst thing you can do is let them back in. Not because you're angry, not because you want revenge, but because you finally understand that they never saw you as a person. They saw you as a reflection. Now it's time to shatter the glass. Because the moment they realize they can't reach you anymore, that they can't use you to feel powerful, that they can't rely on your energy to feed their ego, that's the moment they truly break. Not when you cry, not when you explain, not when you tell them how much they hurt you, but when you finally walk away and never look back. Now say it with me. I am not a reflection. I am real. Write it in the comments. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you are done being someone else's mirror. Number 3. Your vanishing creates an identity crisis in their mind. A person without a mirror forgets what they look like. Let that hit you. Right now, they're not feeling the loss the way you think. They're not sitting around instantly regretting everything, realizing how much they miss you. No. At first, they feel nothing. They think they had you figured out. They think they knew exactly how this was going to play out. They thought you'd argue, you'd beg, you'd get emotional. Maybe you'd block them for a few days, then come crawling back just like before. But instead you disappeared, and that breaks something inside them. Suddenly, they're left with a version of you that doesn't match the story they told themselves. The human brain hates that. It needs patterns. It needs things to make sense. It needs to know where it stands. But now, their entire perception of reality is cracking. They start questioning, wait, did I misjudge them? Why aren't they reacting? Were they never as attached as I thought? That's when the doubt creeps in. At first, it's subtle, just a passing thought, a moment of confusion. But then it starts to grow. Because the one thing that used to reinforce their importance, you just took it away. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine a king who's always had a loyal army. No matter what, his soldiers stand behind him, ready to fight, ready to protect him. He doesn't even have to think about them, he just knows they're always there. Then one day he wakes up and the army is gone. No warning, no explanation, no sign of a battle, just silence. At first he brushes it off. They'll be back, he convinces himself. This is just a temporary shift, a minor inconvenience. But as the days pass and he realizes they're not returning, that's when the panic sets in. That's when he realizes he was never as powerful as he thought. He only felt powerful because they were there. That's exactly what's happening in their mind right now. They never actually had power over you. They just believed they did. And when you disappear without a word, you take away their ability to define themselves. That's where it gets ugly, because now they have to sit alone with the most terrifying question of all. What if I wasn't as important as I thought? That destroys them. The truth is, they were never scared of losing you. They were scared of losing the version of themselves they got to be when they had you around. The person who always had someone to validate them, the person who could control the dynamic, the person who could disappear knowing you'd always chase. But now, that person is dead. Without that mirror, without you constantly reflecting their worth back at them, they don't know who they are anymore. You ever notice how people only start missing you when they realize you've stopped waiting? That's not love, that's fear. That's their mind trying to claw its way back to the version of reality it used to know. They thought they had you trapped in a cycle, thought they could push and pull, knowing you'd never really leave. But now, they have no idea where they stand. Let me tell you, there's nothing more terrifying than realizing you've lost control over something you thought was yours. I know what you're thinking, but if I don't react, if I don't explain, won't they just move on? Let me ask you this. When they ignored you, when they dismissed your feelings, when they took you for granted, did they explain themselves? No, they just expected you to accept it, to stay in place, to keep the cycle going. So why do you think they deserve an explanation now? Let them sit in the confusion. Let them sit in their own doubt, their own questions, their own uncertainty. Because here's the thing, people don't regret losing you. They regret realizing they never actually had you the way they thought they did. That realization is what eats away at them. Not today, not tomorrow, but in time, it will consume them. The brain can't stand an unanswered question. It hates an unsolved mystery. That's why disappearing is so powerful, not because it punishes them, but because it forces them to look in the mirror and see nothing staring back. That breaks them in a way words never could. But I won't lie to you. This won't be easy. You're going to have moments where you want to reach out, moments where you want to remind them that you're still here, moments where you feel guilty for not giving them closure. But let me ask you, did they ever feel guilty for leaving you with unanswered questions? Exactly. So now it's their turn. Let them sit with the confusion. Let them drown in their own doubts. Let them wonder what the hell happened. The truth is, the longer they go without an answer, the more obsessed they become. By the time they realize what they lost, you won't even care anymore. Now say it with me. I am the mystery they'll never solve. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are done being predictable. Number 4, silence isn't absence. It's a void that haunts them. A missing piece is more noticeable than a present one. Let that hit you. Right now, you think they're forgetting about you, that if you don't text, if you don't remind them, if you don't prove your worth, they'll just move on like you never existed. But that's not how the human mind works. People don't miss what's gone. They miss what they can't have. They don't crave something when it's in front of them. They crave it when they realize it's permanently out of reach. That's exactly what your silence does. They don't forget you. They feel your absence like an itch they can't scratch. It starts as a whisper, a passing thought, nothing serious. But over time, it grows. It builds. It becomes a weight pressing on their chest, a thought they can't escape. Because silence isn't nothing. It's a void. And the human brain hates voids. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine walking into a room you've been in 1,000 times. Everything looks the same, except one small thing is missing. A picture on the wall, a chair in the corner, a tiny detail that no one else would notice but you. You feel it immediately. It's like your brain refuses to accept that something is gone, and no matter how hard you try, you can't stop thinking about it. That's exactly what happens when you disappear. At first, they don't notice. They think nothing has changed. They assume you're just waiting, just staying quiet, just giving them space. But then they go to reach for you, and you're not there. Suddenly, that's all they can think about. Because the human mind is a cruel thing. It doesn't want what it has. It wants what it can't reach. When they realize they no longer have access to you, that's when the panic sets in. They don't miss you. They miss what you gave them. They don't crave your love. They crave the validation you provided. They don't feel guilt. They feel the discomfort of an unanswered question. Because now, they don't know where they stand, and nothing drives a person crazier than that. You ever wonder why people don't start appreciating you until you're gone? It's not because they suddenly had an epiphany. It's because they lost their ability to control the story. As long as you were there, as long as they knew you'd respond, as long as they could predict your behavior, they had power. But now, they have no idea what's going on in your head, and that destroys them. People fear the unknown more than anything. They don't fear losing you. They fear not knowing what you're thinking. Are they still hurt? Are they seeing someone else? Did they ever really love me? Or was I just imagining it? The worst thought of all, what if they never cared as much as I thought they did? That's what your silence does. It forces them to sit alone with their own doubts. Here's where it gets even better. The more time passes, the worse it gets. You ever lose something small, a key, a phone, a piece of jewelry, and tell yourself, "Oh, I'll find it later." But then, the more time goes by, the more it bothers you. You start obsessing over it. You retrace your steps. You can't focus because that missing thing is now a giant hole in your mind. That's exactly what's happening in their head. At first, they assume they'll find you again, that you're just taking space. Any minute now, you'll break, you'll return. You'll give them the comfort of knowing you're still an option. But then weeks go by, months, and slowly it dawns on them. They're not finding you again. They lost you for good. That's when they start losing sleep. Because now, they don't just miss you. They resent the fact that they no longer have control. Here's the part that keeps them trapped. They don't know how to fix it. They don't know if they should reach out. They don't know if you'll even respond. They don't know if they even have a chance anymore. That uncertainty is what drives people insane. I know what some of you are thinking, but what if they really don't care? What if they really do just move on? Let me tell you something. People don't move on from the ones who had a real impact in their life. They might distract themselves. They might find someone new. They might pretend like you never existed. But late at night, when they're alone, they feel it. Because the mind can't lie to itself forever. The same way you had to sit in silence when they ignored you, when they dismissed your feelings, when they took you for granted, now it's their turn. There's nothing you need to do. No text, no explanation, no final speech, just silence. Because silence is the most powerful thing in the world. It doesn't just remind them of what they lost. It forces them to accept that they'll never get it back. By the time they realize what happened, you won't even care anymore. Now say it with me. I am the absence they can never replace. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are done explaining, done proving, done waiting. Number 5, they won't realize they miss you. They'll feel like something is missing in themselves. They won't regret losing you. They'll regret the hole they can't fill. Let that sink in. Right now you think they're sitting somewhere, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed with regret. You think they're replaying memories, feeling guilty, realizing how much they took you for granted. But that's not what's happening. They're not feeling the loss the way you think. They're not crying over you. They're not writing some long message about how much they miss you. They're just walking around feeling like something is off. It's like walking into a room where something was moved, but you can't tell what. It's small at first, a nagging feeling in the back of their mind. They're scrolling through their phone, they see your name, and for some reason they hesitate. They go about their day, distracted, busy, acting like nothing has changed. But something has, and the worst part, they don't even realize what it is. That's what your absence does. It's not a clear loss. It's not like losing money or breaking something valuable. It's a slow-burning emptiness, one that time doesn't fix. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine waking up one morning, stepping outside and feeling like the air is different. You can't quite put your finger on it, but something feels missing. The streets look the same, the people act the same. But there's a shift, an emptiness you can't explain. That's what's happening in their minds. They're walking through life, doing the same things, talking to the same people, but there's a space where you used to be and they don't know how to fill it. Here's the best part. They won't even notice it at first. See, people think regret is instant. They think it happens the moment you walk away, but real regret is delayed. At first, they feel free. They convince themselves they made the right choice. They distract themselves, laugh louder, post more, act like they've moved on. But time starts working against them. One day they'll be out with friends and they'll hear a joke that you would have laughed at. They'll get sick and realize no one's checking on them. They'll have a rough day and instinctively reach for their phone, but you're not there. And that's when it hits. Not in a dramatic way, not all at once. Just a quiet, creeping realization that life isn't as full as it used to be. They don't feel sad, they feel incomplete. Here's where it really breaks them. They'll try to fill the space with distractions, with other people, with anything that gives them a temporary high. But nothing works, because you weren't just a person in their life, you were a presence, a source of warmth, stability, energy. And now, they're realizing they can't replace that. But I know what some of you are thinking, but if they don't consciously realize they miss me, then what's the point? Let me ask you something. When they ignored you, when they made you question your worth, when they took you for granted, did they do it intentionally? Or did they just not notice how much you were giving until it was gone? Exactly. That's how people work. They don't recognize what's important while they have it. They don't realize how much they depend on something until it's no longer available. That's why your absence is more powerful than any words you could ever say. Because you're not just showing them what life is like without you, you're making them feel it. Here's the part that really gets them. They won't even know how to fix it. This isn't just a breakup, it's an identity shift. They thought they had you figured out, thought they could walk away and nothing would change. But now, their world feels off balance. The scariest part, they don't even know why. They won't say, "I miss them." No, their ego won't let them. But deep down, they feel it. They'll try to ignore it. They'll distract themselves, push it away, convince themselves it's nothing. But then one day, they'll hear your name, see an old picture, smell something familiar, and for a split second, everything they buried will come crashing back. By then, you won't even care. That's the beauty of silence. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't scream or beg or chase. It just sits there, slowly eating away at them. Because regret isn't loud, it's quiet, subtle. It's the feeling of something missing that they can never quite name and that will haunt them forever. But I won't lie to you, this won't be easy. The hardest part is not checking to see if they notice. Your mind will play tricks on you. It'll tell you, what if they don't care? What if they move on and forget? But here's what you need to understand. You're not doing this to make them miss you. You're doing this to free yourself. The second you stop needing them to notice, that's the second you become untouchable. So now, my friends, it's time to make a choice. You can keep checking your phone, waiting for a sign, hoping they wake up and realize what they lost. Or you can walk away, not to punish them, not to make them regret, but because you finally understand your own value. The real power is in knowing that they'll feel something is missing, even if they never say a word. Now, say it with me. I am the loss they will never understand. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are done waiting for someone to notice your worth. Number 6. When you remove yourself, you remove their ability to win. You can't win a game that no one is playing. Let that sink in. Right now, you think you're walking away. You think you're just stepping back, focusing on yourself, moving on. But my friends, that's not what's happening. What you're actually doing is ending the game before they get to declare themselves the winner. See, they didn't want love. They didn't want connection. They wanted control. They wanted to keep you reacting, keep you emotional, keep you engaged. Every argument, every unanswered text, every time they ignored you just to see if you would chase, that was the game. As long as you kept playing, they were winning, because the one who controls the reactions controls the game. But what happens when you don't respond? When you don't react? When you don't care? They can't win anymore. Trust me, that drives them insane. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine a puppeteer on a stage controlling a marionette. Every little movement, they pull the strings and the puppet dances. The audience watches in awe, thinking, wow, what a performance. But then, mid-performance, the strings are cut, and suddenly the puppet doesn't move. Now the audience isn't looking at the puppet anymore. They're looking at the puppeteer, exposed, helpless, weak. That's exactly what happens when you remove yourself from someone who was trying to control you. Up until now, you were their puppet. They pulled away and you chased. They ignored you and you over-explained. They hurt you and you tried to prove your worth. But the moment you cut the strings, the entire performance collapses. Now they have nothing. They don't have your tears to make them feel powerful. They don't have your attention to make them feel important. They don't have your energy feeding their fragile ego. And worst of all, they don't have an audience watching them win. That's when the panic sets in. Because the truth is, they never cared about winning you. They cared about winning over you. They wanted to know that no matter what they did, they still had power over you, that they could always pull you back in, that they could say something small, do something subtle, and you'd react. But now they're throwing out bait, and you're not biting. That is killing them inside. Because in a battle of egos, the one who doesn't engage is always the one who wins. Let me tell you, this will be the hardest part. Right now, you think walking away means they'll finally respect you, that they'll see your worth, that they'll regret everything and come back changed. That's the lie that keeps you trapped. Because the second you stop reacting, the second you start moving on without the need for their approval, that's the second they start testing you. They'll send that, "Hey, how have you been?" message. They'll post something just to get your attention. They'll suddenly act like they care about what's going on in your life, and you'll be tempted to reply, tempted to prove that you don't care, tempted to show them you're doing just fine without them. But the moment you react, you've lost. Now they know you were still paying attention. That's all they ever wanted. The truth is, they don't need you back. They just need to know that if they wanted you back, they could have you. So what do you do instead? You keep them wondering. You let them sit there, staring at their phone, waiting for a reply that's never coming. You let them check your social media, looking for signs that you're thinking about them, and find nothing. You let them wrestle with the unanswered question they never thought they'd have to face. Wait, did I actually lose them? Trust me, that moment will break them. Because when someone is used to playing mind games, when they're used to having control, when they've built their entire ego around knowing you'll always be there, your silence will be the loudest thing they've ever heard. I know, my friends, I know this isn't easy. You'll have moments where you'll want to prove your strength, moments where you'll want to check if they're suffering, moments where you'll tell yourself, just one reply won't hurt. Don't do it. Because the real power is not in making them miss you, it's in realizing you don't need them to. It's in waking up one day and realizing you don't care anymore. When that day comes, that's when you win. Now say it with me. I refuse to play the game. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are done being someone's emotional playground. Number 7, no closure means their mind becomes a prison. The mind hates unfinished business. Let that hit you. Right now you think you owe them an explanation, that if you just tell them why you're leaving, if you just make them understand how much they hurt you, they'll finally see the truth. But my friends, let me tell you something. Understanding is a luxury, and they don't deserve it. People move on when they get closure, when the story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. When they can tie things up neatly, put you in a box and say, "That's over, time to move on." But when you disappear without a word, they are trapped in their own thoughts, trapped in their own minds, trapped in a prison they can't escape, because the brain can't stand an unanswered question. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine you're watching a movie. You're completely invested. The characters, the drama, the tension. You're waiting for the big reveal, the final moment where everything makes sense. And then, just before the climax, the screen goes black. No ending, no resolution, no explanation. What do? You sit there staring at the screen, frustrated as hell because your mind won't let you move on. You need answers. You need to know why. You need to understand what happened. That's exactly what your silence does to them. At first, they don't feel it. They think they got away with it. They assume you're still out there, waiting, hoping, plotting your next move. But as time passes, that silence starts to mess with them. Why didn't they react? Why didn't they fight for me? Why didn't they at least say something? Those questions don't go away. The second they don't have an answer, their mind starts filling in the blanks. Trust me, it will always come up with something worse than the truth. They'll start wondering if you found someone better. They'll start wondering if you never cared at all. They'll start wondering if they were just a small chapter in your story while they thought they were the whole damn book. That's when the real suffering begins. Because when someone leaves your life and you know why, you can process it. You can tell yourself a story that makes sense. But when someone disappears without a trace, you obsess over it. It gnaws at you. It follows you into your quiet moments. It shows up when you least expect it. The worst part? It never fully goes away, because closure isn't about getting answers. It's about having control over the narrative. When you vanish, they don't get that control. They don't get to define what happened. They don't get to be the victim, the hero, or the one who walked away first. They just get left behind. I know what you're thinking, but if I don't say something, won't they think I didn't care? Listen to me. People who cared about you wouldn't have put you in a position where you felt like disappearing was your only option. They didn't think about your peace. They didn't think about your need for closure. They didn't think about how their actions affected you. So why, my friends, are you bending over backward, trying to give them an ending that makes sense? Let them sit in their own confusion. Let them wrestle with their own questions. Let them rot in the unknown. Because silence is not just absence. It's a message that says, you don't deserve my words. You don't deserve my energy. You don't even deserve to know why I left. And let me tell you something. That message will haunt them. At first, they'll pretend they don't care. They'll act unbothered, indifferent, maybe even relieved. They'll convince themselves they won. But time is cruel. One day, they'll be sitting alone, scrolling through old messages, looking at old pictures, and that unanswered question will hit them like a train. Why did they really leave? Did I mean nothing to them? Were they never as invested as I thought? By then, you'll be so far ahead, you won't even notice. That's the beauty of silence. It doesn't just make them miss you, it makes them miss the version of themselves they were when they had access to you. That's why no closure is the ultimate revenge. Because while they sit there replaying everything in their mind, searching for answers that exist, desperate to understand where it all went wrong, you are already free. And that's how you win. So now, my friends, it's time to make a choice. You can keep explaining yourself, keep giving them clarity, keep handing them the power to move on cleanly, or you can disappear. Not to punish them, not to make them regret, but to finally take back your own peace. The real power is not in making them miss you, it's in realizing you don't miss them. Now say it with me. I owe no one an explanation. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you are done giving closure to people who never deserved it. Listen up, my friends. You don't win by waiting. You don't win by hoping they'll realize what they lost. You win by becoming untouchable. By the time they look back, you'll be so far ahead they won't even be able to reach you. And that's how you win. Now say it with me. I am untouchable. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world. And if you're ready to step into your power, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Stay with me. This is just the beginning.